The Hive Comics and Games is an oasis of nerd fun and events in the heart of Odessa, Texas. Whether it's comic book superhero stories or role-playing in a dungeon, the Hive is where to be. Come tap your mana and face off against the top Magic the Gathering players in West Texas. Hive carries a majority of new comic titles each Wednesday and has all of your favorite titles in their back issue section. Follow them on Facebook at The Hive Comics and on Instagram at The Hive Comic Shop. Movie lovers should check out this family of film festivals: the Brightside Tavern Film Festival in Jersey City, the Hang On to Your Shorts Film Festival in Asbury Park, and the Point Lookout Film Festival on Long Island. Submission information for filmmakers, as well as details about the festivals generally, can be found at filmfreeway.com. Also, be sure to listen to the podcasts hosted by the festival's organizer, CJ Cullen. You can find the official Hang On to Your Shorts podcast, as well as the Cullen on Film podcast, via a shared universe network. Alternate Realities has been gone for over 5 years, but our community lasts forever. And now, in these dark times, the AR signal lights up the night sky, and the old gang is ready to answer the call as we celebrate a year's worth of holidays together. This is the LongAR Halloween. Welcome to the LongAR Halloween, a My Comic Shop history tale. I am your host, Anthony Desiato. This is part 7, April Fool's Day. And joining me for this episode is fellow April birthday and my old Alternate Realities coworker, Tom Darby. Welcome, brother.
How's it going? Good to see ya.
You too. That was my Desmond from Lost. I haven't done that in a long time. I'm a little rusty.
Hi, brother. I miss him. I miss what was his name? Shit. This is
Henry Ian Cusick, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Nah, he was he was only like decent guy, right? On the show. Everyone else had kind of like a real sketch past, but brother he just wanted to see Penny again.
That's right. I know. Have you revisited Lost at all in recent years?
No. Definitely not. No. The only time I would ever reference Lost is when we chat and we do the brother voice. So I feel like that's enough. That keeps me set with my Lost, quota.
Yeah, that's the enduring legacy of Lost, is when we do our Desmond impressions.
Absolutely. I think that's all we need.
Yeah. I haven't rewatched it myself either. Steph has never seen it, so it's one of those things where I think she would be down to watch it, and I wouldn't mind revisiting it from the start. It's just so many episodes.
And so much of it is not good. Yeah. Like there are chunks that are just, to me, unwatchable. It's like, why am I wasting 40 minutes doing this? Like, if you could figure out a way to do a Sean McInerney way where you watch the best parts and you get the whole thing done, I think that would make it fantastic.
Yeah, I mean,
it's got to be out there. Someone has to have had created that.
Probably. I don't know though. The completist in me, and also this would be her first time watching it, so I don't know that I could condone jumping around. I feel like we would have to watch it all. We did Sopranos from start to finish for the first time earlier in the pandemic, and it was incredible. It lived up to the hype in a way that I didn't think it would. Just based on my expectations were so high based on everything I had heard over all these years, but it honestly exceeded my expectations. It was incredible.
And you had the box set for a long time, right?
Yeah, I had the box set, sold the box set, and we watched.
So you didn't watch it?
Nope. I watched the first season on DVD, which I owned years ago, and then I sold them, and so we watched on the HBO app, and and it was amazing. So I watched something, streaming that I used to own the physical media of. Yes.
All right.
But I
condone that, but
I know. Well, so I bring up TV because, in the process of doing all these LongAR Halloween episodes, right, and reconnecting with the AR gang, it's been an opportunity for me to sort of reflect on my relationship with each of you, before we do these episodes. And, when I think of you, probably the first thing that comes to mind is our shared love of television, because that was really 100% what we bonded over initially. I mean, yes, there was the comics connection, and yes, there was the alternate realities connection, and that I think facilitated it, and like it put us in the same space. But it was the TV. It was the TV that really made us friends.
I agree. That's my most vivid memory of our early, not early friendship, but the early part of our friendship. Because like you said, AR facilitated the space where we could get together. But when we started having our conversations, it was definitely about TV. And you should probably remember this as well. Like our 3-hour conversation on the phone about the ending of Prison Break, and how we were like just devastated. The first ending, not the revival.
Yeah.
That was devastating, and like as television connoisseurs, that needed to be discussed. So yeah, definitely. TV definitely has kept us connected. Not so much these days, because I've kind of veered away from the newer stuff, but there's still the stuff that we watched collectively back then that we can certainly reflect upon.
Yeah, and so that's actually one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, is exactly what you just referenced, your shifting, interests, and kind of not being as into TV, because I think it's really interesting. And I think too that, not to make us sound so old, but like the way television is made and presented and consumed is so different than even, like 10 years ago when we were talking about our favorite shows. Like, so much has changed. I thought that would kind of be interesting to talk about. But man, I remember that conversation after Prison Break. I think we both needed a little therapy after that. And thankfully the revival, I feel like the revival ending redeemed the show for us in a big way, and felt like a much more satisfying note to kind of go out on, right?
Yeah, and I think I told you this before, but I went to one of those like Walking Dead conventions, and Sarah Wayne Callies was there, and I got to actually talk to her about it. I was like, I don't care about The Walking Dead. I want to talk about Prison Break. So I got my 3 or 4 minutes, as we would normally say, like, because we want the people to move along. I totally understand that too. From back in the store, the rule was you get 1 minute to talk to us, and then you got to go.
Yeah,
because we got things to do. So I totally understand where these celebrities, they come out to the shows, they're meeting everybody, and it's daunting for them. So like, I was respectful of their time, obviously, but I was like, listen, straight up, like, I don't give a shit about The Walking Dead. Let's talk about Prison Break. The only thing I want to say was, I hated the original ending. I was so glad with the revival that you and Michael at least got a happy ending, because I needed super therapy after the first ending. My friend Anthony and I were talking for 3 hours. It was horrible. But we're just thankful that you two were able to come together, and now we feel a little bit better. So,
what'd she
absolutely. So right from Sarah Wayne Callies' mouth, she's like, did you like the ending? I was like, yes, I did. And she's like, good, me too. So we got confirmation from her.
All right.
I'm not sure she's listening to this, but
I'd be very surprised. Yeah, no, that's cool to hear. And that's one of the big ways that TV has changed so much. And again, just for the context, I mean, like, I still remember that summer, probably summer 2007, like, where you and I really started, talking about TV regularly. And so, I mean, it's crazy to think that we're already like 14 years later, but
I know,
like, one of the big shifts that we've seen is this wave of revivals. And I say revival, not a reboot, right? And I know those terms are often used interchangeably, but, I consider a reboot something where, you take the concept of a past show, and new cast, new storyline. It's not necessarily set in the same continuity or universe of the original show, as opposed to a revival, something like Prison Break, where, you're picking up the story a few years later. But I got to tell you, Prison Break is probably the exception for me, where when the revival was done, I was glad they did it, and I felt like they improved on the original's ending. In almost every other case, I got done with the revival, and I was like, I wish they hadn't done this. What has your experience been with revivals, to whatever extent you've watched any?
Okay, so like, for the most part, I agree with you. Like, the Veronica Mars one, from what you tell me, was not good at all, right? The Veronica Mars cliffhanger that we got was what, tolerable, you would say?
I don't know that I would even say that.
Okay.
to be honest.
All right. So Prison Break is definitely an example of that. Of the revival fixing the mistakes. Trying to think of another revival that messed up.
I got one.
Okay.
This one's kind of tough. I'm very split on this. 24. Because when they did that Live Another Day, right?
Yeah.
I thought that the season as a whole was one of their best seasons. And the fact that they only did the 12 hours, like, it was so much tighter. It was great. But they ended it in such a way where it was like, if this is your last opportunity to tell a story with this character, why would you leave him in this place? Like, you did an open-ended finale the first time around. Now you're doing this revival. You don't know if you're ever going to do more. It's like, why not put a little bit of a bow on the character? So I was annoyed at the end, but I did like the season overall.
I agree. Like, I totally forgot about that, because they did so much more damage in the revival than they did during that 8th season, in my opinion. With all the deaths and with what happened to Jack at the end, they ruined and Audrey.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, what the hell? So they did so much more damage in the revival than the show could have done on its own. So yeah, definitely that's a great example of that.
So I don't know. It's like every time I think of one of these things, again, Veronica Mars was a big disappointment. The Netflix Arrested Development seasons were extremely disappointing compared to what the show had been. You know, the 24 one, like we said, was kind of a mixed bag. Prison Break was satisfying. I'm sure there are others that I'm blanking on, but I don't know. This wasn't a full-on revival, but Tom Welling and Erica Durance returning in the Arrowverse.
I listened to the episode, with you and Drew talking about that. And you're a little upset. I agree.
Yeah.
Or was it you and Brian? I'm not sure. I think it was you and Drew, though.
I think that was Drew. But so in almost every instance that I'm thinking of, it's, and again, I mean, I hate to be so dramatic and say, like, man, I wish they hadn't even done it at all. I mean, not that anything's been quite that bad, but at the same time, right, like, you do want to protect the legacy of the original show and the integrity of the story that they told. And I've gotten to the point now where I really feel you have to have a really compelling reason to come back and do this. But here's the thing, where in most of those cases, Veronica Mars and Arrested Development in particular, and 24, like, all of those shows either ended on an unfinished note or didn't really end well, or they got canceled. So, like, in all of those instances, it on paper, it felt like, well, these are the ones to do a revival of. So I don't know. I guess I ultimately don't know where I land on these, other than I'm, like, really skeptical, I guess, now moving forward.
Yeah, based on what you had said just now, if the story isn't locked down and they have a real plan for it with a legitimate ending, my opinion is don't do it, because, like you said, protecting the integrity and the legacy of what the original story did needs to be left alone. Like, there's no reason to do a Golden Girls revival. I mean, you couldn't, because they're all dead except for Betty White. So even like the Saved by the Bell one, I have zero interest in that at all. Like, I love the original show. It helped me when I was a kid growing up. Just like, having a decent sense of being a human. But the revival, like, it's not what the show originally was. It was more about, like, learning lessons and, them growing as people. It looks like a sitcom where kids are banging each other, and it's deviant, and it doesn't hold true to what the show originally was about. Peter Engel, like the executive producer of all those TNBC shows, he's not involved. And it's Mario Lopez that wants to make a buck, revive his career, if anything, by having little kids bang each other on television.
So I watched the whole season. I don't think there was any of that. No. So,
okay.
All right. So I guess now I'm going to argue against myself here, because that was an example. I thought that was great. I really enjoyed that 10 episode season, but I feel like in that case, like, to me, as much as, yes, it's set in the continuity of Saved by the Bell, and you do have most of the original cast coming back, right? You do have that. So in that sense, you could consider it a revival, but at the same time, it feels more, I guess, like a sequel series. Like when we talk about like a Fuller House or a Girl Meets World or something like this, where, again, like it's focused on the next generation with the legacy characters there. So I feel like those kind of go in their own little category. But I actually really like this. I thought they did a great job of being funny on their own, while at the same time poking fun, but in a very loving way, of the original and of the silliness of the original. So that I actually really did. I have to say, I was a big fan of that. I thought it was really funny.
Okay, well, that's where you and I are going to differ for sure, because I see Saved by the Bell in a more serious way, because like I was like, you know, in those, not in their shoes, but like I was about the same age as them, you know, and like a lot of things were happening, obviously not as like serious as now these days, but I took it differently in a more serious way. You know, I'm older now, like I'm a teacher. You know, I definitely see like the bad stuff that the kids are exposed to. And my personal opinion is that they need shows like this, you know, to teach them good behavior, consequences, what they should and what they shouldn't do, be considerate of others. There's no shows out there that are like that, you know? And like for Mario Lopez to like, you know, make a sitcom out of it, like in my opinion, I don't think was what was tasteful. Even though I didn't see it. I saw clips for it, and I could be completely wrong. But, you know, they haven't sold me on that.
All right. Tom's really coming at Mario Lopez in this podcast. I don't know, Sarah Wayne Callies, I don't know. She'll be pleased if she listens. Lopez, maybe not so much.
Well, you know me. Like I back up what I say. You know, if I say something, I'm gonna say it to your face.
I know. Look,
you know, that's what you get.
I know. Look, you're a man of strong, emphatic opinions, and I appreciate that. And you know, when you're into something, like you go all in. And that's kind of the other thing that's always been interesting to me when we talk television, because like you've turned me on to a lot of great shows. Like I forever remain grateful for the Banshee recommendation, which, you know, every now and then I'll see someone post about it on Facebook, like they just discovered it. And I'm like, oh man, like I was there for that. Thanks to Tom. So, you know, that, you know, you turn me on to Supernatural. But it's funny because a lot of these shows, I know you watched Banshee all the way through, but like some of the shows that either you recommended to me or that we were watching together, like you were so into and then just stopped watching and that was it. Like you just turned.
Yeah, Supernatural is definitely one of them. You like when they started like just killing every female character, like that didn't sit well with me. But I mean, like I did come around because like the show is about Sam and Dean, and like Sam and Dean are like they're awesome. So I can't crap on them for that. And Banshee's a great show. Like if you haven't watched that show, you need to watch that show. Like talking about because you know how there's this whole like genre of television where the bad guy is the protagonist.
Sure. Right?
Like who the hell wants that? I don't want a criminal running around, you know, telling a story about breaking the law, committing copycat, you know, inspiring copycat people to do this stuff. But, you know, it was a good show because he had like, you know, a bad background, but he wasn't like a malicious person. So I can kind of like get behind that. But it was definitely like the plot is very, very simple. Like, what if a bad guy becomes the sheriff of a town? Like, that's a great concept to me. Like,
yeah, right. This ex-convict
bad guy makes the laws or enforces the laws. Like, what kind of environment are you going to get out of that? And he's fighting neo-Nazis and like rapists and stuff like that. It's insane.
Yeah, it's a great show. I mean, for anyone not familiar, wait, was it Cinemax? It was Cinemax, right?
Cinemax.
So it's a Cinemax series, ran 4 seasons. And yeah, the basic premise, like Tom was saying, is, you know, an ex-convict who basically through a series of events, assumes the identity of the incoming sheriff in this small town. And so, you know, and it's fascinating to watch because like he dispenses his own brand of justice, and it's so visceral and it's so satisfying because he does the sort of thing that, you know,
want to do.
You know, exactly. So it really is interesting. And he, you know, and there's a lot, you know, from his past that kind of comes back around and everything. It's such a great show. But so the lead actor, Anthony Starr, do you watch The Boys?
Actually, when I was getting tattooed, they ran like the whole first and second season. So the 6 hours that I was there, I watched a lot of it.
Okay, what'd you think?
It was all right. I like Billy Butcher.
Yeah,
like
right.
He deserves to whoop somebody's ass because it was fucked up what happened to his wife. You know,
Yeah.
Anthony Starr, that guy's a douchebag, or his character's an asshole, big time. So I'm hoping that Billy Butcher gets his goddamn hands on him.
I know, but it's like that's the thing. Like, and he plays him so well. Like he's so good.
He's a good actor.
And it's like
absolutely.
And that's the thing. He's so like he's believable, and it's like to whatever extent that I think you might. Again, Homelander is a despicable character, but to whatever extent you might find him entertaining, I think that's all the performance. Like he's so good. And when the show premiered, we watched it like pretty early on. It was kind of on my radar, I guess, because I had read a little bit of the Boys comic when it came out. Not much though, but I knew of it, and I knew the showrunner was Eric Kripke from Supernatural, so that made me kind of interested, and there was a lot of buzz. So Steph and I watched it, and I'll be honest, it was like a good bit into that episode where we were like, that's him, that's Anthony Starr. Like, you know, we were so like drawn in, and we didn't even like place him immediately. And then once we did, it made me enjoy it even more.
Different though.
Yeah.
You know, you give him a clean cut and change his hair a little bit. He's very different looking.
Yeah, for sure. But so I'm glad you at least got to see some. Where do you get tattooed?
Addicted to Ink.
Oh, you do Addicted to Ink. Right on. Yep.
Yeah,
shout out
AR spot. A lot of
shout out
AR crew members.
I know. Shout out to Chris Wilcock, a frequent guest.
Bad luck, Wilcock. I love that nickname.
Yeah.
I love that nickname.
As has been discussed.
He's on the shop a lot, so I get to chat with him about stuff, and he tells me all the bad stuff that happens. He has great stories.
For sure. I mean, I'm sorry that he lives through all of that, but he's a wonderful guest. I mean, I've had him on a bunch of times, and you know, we've talked about this. But for anyone, you know, a quick refresher: Chris Wilcock, owner of Undiscovered Realm, and also the tattoo shop Addicted to Ink. And yeah, we've talked about this. Like, he has like the worst luck, I think, out of anyone. I mean, most recently, just if anyone is like, what are you guys talking about? Most recently, like they got back from a show, they did a card show in New Jersey or something, and they came back late at night, and there was a guy in White Plains drunk and stumbling around outside the tattoo shop, its new location, and he like fell down and like spliced his head open. And apparently, like, part of his head was like flapping in the breeze, and he was out there in front of the store, and they call paramedics, and like Chris has video of it. It's like, and that's just one tiny example of the kind of stuff that he runs into on a regular basis.
Poor Chris.
Are you friends with him?
Guy.
Are you friends on Facebook?
I'm not.
You should be. You should be, because he chronicles, and we've talked about this on the podcast before too. He chronicles everything. So, you know, so it's, again, like your heart goes out to him, you know, for dealing with all of these, you know, from minor inconveniences to like major calamities, you know, blown out tires on the way to a show with a truck full of stuff. It's like anything you might imagine this poor guy has lived through.
Yeah. That's, definitely shout out to Chris. Chris is he's a good guy.
Yeah. And he's that's the thing, you know, if he were a jerk, you still, you never wish, you don't wish ill on anyone, but well, you never wish ill on anybody, but it's like, it just makes it even worse that it's like, he's such a nice guy. And I feel like he puts a lot of like a lot of good, positive stuff out there, you know, in the world through, you know, again, through the businesses and all the stuff he does. And it's just like this poor guy, he'll be a guest on our forthcoming 100th episode. So I'm going to catch up with him and see what else he has to share with us.
Please tell him that I shouted him out. When I see him next, this will be a conversation. The next time I see
Yes.
him at the shop.
He listens. He likes this show because, I do the Superman show, Digging for Kryptonite, and I do the book club show, my comic shop book club. But he likes this because it's more general chat. Like, you don't have to be a Superman fan. You don't have to have read the comic that we're talking about. He likes these more general conversations. So I'm sure he'll listen. He'll know. What did you get tattooed this time?
When or what?
What did you get tattooed?
It's a comic book character called Darkchild from the 90s. So it's basically an image of her surrounded by monsters. Her power is that she can pull monsters from our nightmares and bring them into our reality. So Cash, my artist, I had the idea, like, I wanted to get her in there, and then like he took a whole bunch of ideas from the comic that I gave to him and was like, okay, let's do this and this. So my original thing was just having her, and I was like, all right, whatever else you want to do, you do, like, let me know what you want to do, and I'll give you the green light, or have you tweak something. Cash is super creative. Like, he's an amazing artist. I give him one image, and I was like, this is what I want. Everything else with the coloring, you do that entire thing yourself. So it expanded, and of course it always expands, right? You have one idea, and then all of a sudden, 25 visits later, and like several $1,000s later, you have something else. So yeah, that's what I'm working on currently still.
Right on. Still, so have you been getting tattoos like regularly over these past few years, or did you have a break?
No, I had like a 15-year break, actually. My upper sleeve, I got in the early 2000s, and I actually started getting tattooed again over the pandemic.
Gotcha.
When the store started to open up again under like the COVID conditions, like, I got my appointment in, and I just been doing it ever since. Just like I've had thousands of ideas, but it's all about like, all right, like, which one do you want to live with now? That's kind of like the idea. So,
Right.
I narrowed it down, like, actually, I was reading the old comic over the pandemic, and I was reflecting on this with Ken Marion, because he and I chat, multiple times a week. For a while, he was the person that I spoke to during the pandemic. I talked to nobody else. Like, during like the whole March through like, the end of the summer, where everything was just basically dark. I spoke to literally 3 people. Like, my mother, Rich Roney, once a week,
Yeah.
and Ken Marion. That was it. So during our like, weekly check-ins, it was more than weekly. It was like every other day, because we were like, what the fuck are we gonna do? Like, we're basically like watching the world erode. We're just talking about like what we've been doing, and I had told them I'm reading old comics, and Darkchild was a book that I've always liked, and I dug out the old books, and I just reread, the 12 issues that were produced, and it was like it was I guess you could say it was like comforting, just to like reread and like kind of go back to a time when it wasn't so crappy. Like, the nostalgia definitely kicked in right there. So like it really, this is cliche, but I'm gonna say it anyway. It definitely helped me get through like, the monotony of the pandemic. Like, reading books isn't gonna like mentally and physically get you through all the shit that we had to deal with, but it was something that I enjoyed doing when I was like, sitting at home just waiting for like the next day to come. So to me, that was important. So, that's certainly like, stuck with me for a while.
No, that's awesome. And actually, one of my patrons had a question for you. He had the same question for you and Brian. So I know you heard me ask it in the last episode, but about whether or not you're still reading comics, and that's our answer, and that's really cool to hear. And kind of like on that note, and I'm sure people can identify with this. Over this past year, it's like, you gotta do something. I follow The Rock on Instagram, and he's always talking about having an anchor. Like you need an anchor in your life. And, for him, it's the gym, naturally. But I've really been thinking about that idea. And I feel like for myself, it's kind of been, there are kind of three, I suppose. I mean, my family first and foremost, and honestly, having going through this with the both of them, like that's kept me sane. And that's been the silver lining in all of this, is getting to spend all this time, especially with our son as he's at this young age. Right. So that's one. The gym for me physically is definitely an anchor. And I know, because I talked about this in the last episode, I had a lot of starts and stops over this last year for various reasons, the move and injury and all kinds of stuff. And now that I've been back in a routine, I feel like my mental health is much better. I mean, I like the release that I get when I'm doing that, like really, really makes a big difference. So that's not. And then the third one is doing all these podcasts. That's why I think I've been doing so many, because it's like, it's getting to have these conversations and connect, even if it's virtual. But, and it's the sort of thing where, and I've said this on numerous LongAR Halloween episodes. It's like, I hate to say that a podcast is what I need in order to force myself to catch up with people, but it gives some structure to it, and it just kind of gives a little push to it. And so doing this has really been a major outlet, and I think has helped a lot, just with, like you said, like cutting up the monotony and just kind of having something like fun and creative,
No, absolutely. I agree. Definitely having, stuff to do. Jiu-jitsu opening up relatively recent has been good for me as well. I'm not doing the like the different classes that are being done, but I am practicing with my coach one-on-one. I'm not super comfortable training with the group yet until I got my second shot. Yeah. After that, I'll think about it again. But just being able to train at least like once a week has been good for me. So that's been super helpful. Definitely.
Good. And, just jumping back to comics, so a day after this episode comes out, you and I also have an episode of my Comic Shop Book Club dropping where, and we already recorded it a little while back, about Batman Hush. And that was fun. I got to tell you, and I think I said this in that episode, but I'll repeat it here. I was surprised you wanted to do it, to be honest, like mostly because I just was like, I don't know that he would want to sit down and reread this and talk comics, but I was so pleasantly surprised that you did. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I talk a lot of crap sometimes, like, that I'm like against comics and like, I've stopped buying comics. I need to revise that. Like the new stuff, I don't buy. I'm morally opposed to what is coming out these days. But the older stuff, like that's still, I still keep that stuff. Like stuff from the 90s is that's my era. No one will ever tell me differently. No one will ever convince me of that otherwise. So I have that to tether myself to. And like I said before, like, going back to the Dark Child books, I'll go back to some older stuff and read it, and I'll have that, not the same feeling that I got when I first read it, but it someone said this to me before, like there's a magic in older books. It's unexplainable, but it's there. There's some sort of magic that's there. And your magic and my magic could be totally different. So it brought me delight when I was able to reread some of these older books that I haven't read before. Like, in a while ago.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get it. I mean, yeah, there's so much, and over the years on this podcast, this has been a little bit of a theme where there's so much, whether it's, and honestly, this extends to anything beyond comics too, TV shows, movies, like, I think any kind of entertainment, and probably even beyond entertainment too. So much of our feelings towards things are wrapped up in, that first time that we experienced them. And, the connection that you forge, especially when it's, it hits you at the right point in your life, whether it's a young age or formative age, or, whatever the case may be. There's so much of that wrapped up in it. And yeah, it's like, again, for me, you know, the classic example, I always go to Death of Superman, but it's like, yeah, if you or someone else were to read it now cold with no attachment to the story or to the character, you might be like, oh, what's the big deal? But for me, it's like, my God, like that first comic set me on this whole path. Like there's so much wrapped up in it. So I get that. And that's cool. And, you know, and that's the beauty of comics. Like you can read what you like and skip what you don't. And there's, you know, all of us, I think, have stuff on our shelves, you know, that like, you know, has been staring at us for a long time. So you probably have more than enough to keep you busy for quite some time if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, definitely. There's plenty of material that I really liked, I've kept it. So there's always that to go back to. But there's also newer stuff too. You know, like I've been collecting art for a while too. So if there's an opportunity for me to get some art, I'm definitely going to be doing that. Obviously, not so much these days, you know, with no conventions happening.
Right.
But again, if there's an opportunity, you know, I'm gonna seize it.
Yeah, right on. I just want to jump back to the TV side for a minute. Because, you know, we're talking about The Boys, and you know, that's probably the other, you know, in addition to the revivals and everything, that's probably one of the other like major differences over these past few years since we first started, you know, bonding over television is streaming, and just, you know, how much content there is. And the fact that it's on all of these different platforms. I mean, I know for a while, like you really held out, like you didn't have Netflix or Hulu or any of that. Have you gotten any of that now, or are you still without?
No,
None of it?
no, nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. I don't need that stuff. The only thing that I would like consider getting is like ESPN Plus, so that I can watch some of the UFC fights that are on
Right.
ESPN Plus. You know, like before they signed with ESPN, they were on Fox, and all of like the house shows were free on FS1 and on Fox. But now, like, since like, you know, since they signed with ESPN, most of their fights are on ESPN Plus. So I have missed out on things on you know, on cards. So that's kind of like wearing me down a little bit. But in terms of like content that's on these streaming services, first of all, I don't know what's even out there, right? Like, there's so much, like, and there's so many platforms.
Yeah.
What's out there? What could possibly be out there that could interest me? You know, when you have like 10,000 options, how do you decide, you know, what are you going to do?
I mean, it certainly can be daunting, no doubt. So you have cable, but that's it.
I'm totally content with watching old Seinfeld episodes, old episodes of The Office, which I've actually like warmed up to. Because in the beginning, like I dismissed it a lot, right? But like, you know, when you're sitting at home and it's after school and you're just dead tired, you can't do work, like I'll put on Comedy Central, and they run through like the entire series in like a week, right?
Yeah.
So I've seen the series from start to finish probably 3 times already, right? So like, you know, I watch those shows, and it brings me a little bit of entertainment and joy, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I'll watch episodes of Married with Children, that the reruns on those like weird networks that no one ever knows of, and like Seinfeld, like, you know, this stuff gets me by. I'm totally cool with watching, you know, older shows that I didn't focus on when they were first on, but I'm totally content with that. Like, you know, I don't need to have Hulu to watch, like, you know, the drug addict show on FX, whatever that shit is called.
Right.
You know?
It's fascinating because I mean, I remember like the last time we talked about this. I know you still didn't have that, but it's been a while, and I thought maybe you had broken down and gone for it. But so I mean, again, I guess that kind of speaks to this. One of the other things that I wanted to touch on with you is like this larger, again, shifting interest. I mean, and again, I know you still watch TV, but like, would you still call yourself a TV connoisseur? Do you still? No,
I can't. But the thing is, like, can you call streaming services and what they put out TV? You know, your definition of TV that's changed. You know,
the Emmys consider it.
The networks were the TV.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, I can watch Hulu on my PlayStation 4. That's not TV. That's a console. You know?
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, right. There's, you know, whether, you know, you consider streaming and, you know, the same argument when it comes to movies too. And these days it's like, you know, certain seasons of shows are so short and movies on streaming platforms can get longer. So you almost run into this thing of like, well, what really makes a TV show versus a movie even in certain instances? Right. Like there's a lot of blurring of lines. I mean, I guess like overall, again, I think if you really had the interest, you would get these things. So, but at the same time, I feel like it does make me a little sad just because I know how much you've loved TV, but again, I know you still have all those shows and all that stuff. And I guess like it's funny though. I'm trying to think of something that like I would say you have to watch this. I mean, I guess The Boys, which you've caught some of. But there is so much out there. And yes, it can be daunting and sometimes it can be hard. Like, where do I even start? But there is a lot of great stuff. But at least you're a step above Rich Roney because Rich doesn't even have cable or Wi-Fi.
Live in a house. I think he lives in like some sort of rundown shack and he like pirates like, you know, internet service and like the phone. I think he's out there like messing with like junction boxes and like hooking things up. When he talks on the phone, he's on the street with like a giant like wire and like he's jimmy rigged like some sort of contraption. I don't believe that what he's doing is like totally legal. By the way,
my understanding is that he uses he creates a hotspot with his cell phone, and that's how he has the connectivity that he has.
He has these big meetings powered by his phone. These are like big clients. He's in charge of these accounts that are huge. Like he had the GM account. That thing is huge, and it's powered by a cell phone. If that phone breaks, what would happen?
What? Forget breaks. What if he forgets to charge it? Lost the account. Phone wasn't charged.
What do you do? What do you do? So honestly, I don't believe any of that shit. I really don't because like it's like. I hold like Jeff Bezos is like, you know, the reason why my company runs is because of like this cup right here. If this cup were to become, you know, slightly less full, like Prime streaming would just cease to exist. Or if a little bit got out, or if the glass chipped a little bit, no shipping for 2 weeks. That's how I feel like, you know, with Rich. Like, how lazy can you be to not fix your washing machine?
Oh, right.
Like, he has like so many broken appliances in his house that he's like doing all this extra work to not call like the repairman. Want to know why? He doesn't have a house. It's not true.
Let me say, I want to circle back to that, but let me say this on a positive note, because I think this is important because this has really become a theme. In all of these episodes that I've been doing on the LongAR Halloween, right? I'm asking people, you know, like within the AR gang, like who have you been keeping in touch with, especially over the pandemic? And in almost every episode, Rich Roney, the most consistent. Yes. And there's some variation, like, you know, Brian is like, oh, I talked to Doug. You know, Doug didn't necessarily come up when I talked to Roby or Bill, for example. But in almost every episode, it's Rich. And whether the person gets the call weekly or monthly or whatever it is, he's such a constant presence. So however he's doing it, technology-wise, he's making it work. I mean, what's funny is that, like, I bet if his company knew he didn't have Wi-Fi, like, they might get it for him. Don't you think?
They might send somebody. They might send a crew. But what do you do? There's no address.
I know.
Like, what do you do? Like, all of a sudden, like, you know, the paychecks are going to stop coming. Like, you know, this guy doesn't exist. So,
well, you know, Lord Retail from Acme Comics in North Carolina, he posted recently that he, like, for the past few years, he's had most of his possessions in storage Like he's had a house that he's been living in, but for various circumstances, like he had all of his, like most of his stuff. And, you know, in his post, he describes like when the movers, and cause he moved recently, and when the movers came and they saw how little he had, like they couldn't believe it. And as I was reading his post, all I thought about was Rich and what we've always thought his place must look like, where it's like a chair and some milk crates and the rabbit ear TV. And that's about it.
He always mentions like, you know, this garage that he has. Right? So this like communal like parking structure. So that could be his house. Like a little like parking space in like a garage.
Maybe. I mean, I've mailed him stuff and he's gotten it. And it is a residential address.
It's easy to steal mail these days. I mean, there are porch pirates stealing people's stimulus checks. I could do that. I could do that.
I will. One other funny thing with Rich, and I'm sure this has come up in the past, but, you know, and I know you and I, we've definitely talked about this, you know, when he's not using his cell phone, he turns it off, you know, as opposed to, I think most cell phone users, you leave it on. But with Rich, it's like, if he's not using it, he turns it off. And, he's usually pretty reachable via email, but, you know, not always. And, you know, sometimes and he's busy with work. And just the other day or yesterday, I emailed him and I got the out of office bounce back. And it's just like, and so this just happened. I thought to myself, it's like, yeah, if his phone's off and you get that out of office, it's like, you don't know, like he'll resurface at some point, but it's not.
He's going to retire soon though.
You can't just grab him.
Going to be useless.
Yeah, that's true.
The work phone is going to be useless. So is the email. So he can literally just vanish. And he's done that before. Like he likes the Irish, like exit, right? The Irish funeral exit, whatever the fuck you call that shit. Yeah. Like we just leave. He would do that to us. He did it to us. So we caught him.
That's right.
Wedding. We caught him.
I know.
And he tried to leave. So, you know, you can't put anything past that guy. And again, I'm the only one that's going to call him out on this stuff, right? Everyone is like, you know, he's a saint and all this great stuff. I love Rich, but if he's bullshitting me, I'm going to tell him to his face, you're fucking bullshitting me. I'm the only fucking guy that's going to do that. And again, like, it sounds that I'm really, like, you know, crapping on him. Like, I love the guy. I got into a car accident because of him, okay? So, like, again, I'm not blaming him for that. That was my fault. But, like, you know, like, the viewers shouldn't get this idea that I hate Rich Roney. Like, Rich Roney is, like my second father. Whenever I need, like, advice, I certainly run it by him. Have another set of ears to go to. But yeah, if he's you know, telling me what I want to hear, or if he's like, you know, slow walking me with something, I doesn't matter who you are.
But so what is it that you don't believe though? Like you don't believe the bit about the, like, using the hotspot? Like you think he's stealing someone's Wi-Fi?
It's possible.
But do you think he would, but I say this with love, but do you think he would know how to do that?
I wouldn't put it past anybody.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past anybody. I think we're all capable of doing things, no matter what it is.
My favorite thing, you know what, and we have called him out on this, and I think we did it in an episode a few years ago. The thing that I definitely did not buy was this story about how, like, he loses the C, because he only has the rabbit ears, right? So he only gets like the basic broadcast channel, but he tried to push this story that he loses the CW like at 8:00 when all the Arrowverse shows are on. Like he can watch it any other time, but all of a sudden at 8:00, like he loses
CW it. CW is gone. Yeah.
Because it's like, Rich, like, did you watch Arrow? No, I don't have CW.
But at 8:01, I lost it. But at 10:00, the Pix 11 news was on. I saw the Pix 11 news.
I know, it's like, you could just tell us you don't want to watch the Arrowverse. It's okay.
Right. Exactly.
It's all right.
Exactly. And he just doesn't want to, like, disappoint anybody. But it's like, it's okay. You can have your thoughts on this. But, again, all in all, like, he's a wonderful human being. And we pick on him sometimes. So
it's all with love. And I got to tell you, sadly, between the store closing and now the pandemic, when it comes to, like, a lot of people in the AR group, and I mean, you included, it's sad to say, it's like, there has been more more time in between, talking or certainly hanging out, right? Rich is an instance where, if anything, even though I'm not seeing him, I feel like our friendship has actually grown during all of this period, because the phone calls have been, I think, as regular, if not more regular than they've ever been. And I've been doing all these Superman podcasts with him. Like we did the George Reeves Adventures of Superman. Yeah.
He was we had 4 hours with him.
Yeah. But it was great. And I feel like it was fun. And I genuinely think he enjoyed kind of having that project, to like for something to do, like we were saying. Yeah. And like, from my perspective, it was fun, because look, when we have our calls, it's like, you can only tell the alternate reality stories, so many times. So like, this gave us this whole new pocket of stuff to talk about. Like, it was great. So yeah, no, we love Rich. The whole technology or lack thereof bit is sometimes a little baffling. I mean, he swears that upon retirement, he's finally going to break down and get Wi-Fi, but I don't know, more and more, I think that's just something he's telling us. Like, I'll believe it when I see it, I guess.
Which we won't, because we're not going to see his place. Or we're not going to have proof of that either, because you can't prove you have internet. Unless he's gonna play Call of Duty with us on a PlayStation 4 or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's never gonna happen. So yeah.
So he also claims that he's going to get at least some of the streaming services.
Oh.
And I
definitely don't believe.
I would be surprised, but it's funny. I said to him, I was like, if he does, like, for argument's sake, let's say he does, I feel like, I don't know, like, I wonder what would happen. And I said to him, I'm like, part of me wonders, like, would you just like get pulled down the rabbit hole and like, we don't hear from him for weeks? And then he's like, oh my God, like, I watched Daredevil and I watched Stargirl and like he just like spends like weeks like just pouring through all this stuff.
First, he wouldn't watch that because it's a female lead, so he won't watch that.
He actually likes, he likes Stargirl. He's seen Stargirl because, get this.
Wait, maybe CW came back?
He gets the CW again now.
Oh, really?
Well, it's funny enough, when there was a show he wanted to watch, he all of a sudden got it back.
Mm-hmm. This is fucking liar. He lies.
If he's listening to this, I'm sure he loves this. I'm sure he loves this segment. He's probably like, when is it going to end?
I know. We gotta change the subject, because I feel he's going to like murder me at some point. I'm going to get like a mail bomb or something like that, and it's going to be from Rich.
It's just, I'm like, look, I'm going to take him at his word. I'm assuming that he's using his hotspot, as he says. And I'm glad. I mean, could you imagine being in a pandemic, living alone with no Wi-Fi? I mean,
well, here's the thing, his office is going to reopen at some point, but he told me that the restrictions were too much for him. Like, he didn't want to walk on one side of the office.
Oh.
As opposed to the left side of the office. Because, like, they wanted to have, like, two lanes of traffic going through. And, like, he didn't want to, like, walk up a few flights of stairs. Because you can't have multiple people in the elevator. So, I don't even know if he even works. It could be, like, telemarketing, for all we know.
As we've always said, so much of what we might know about him just comes from what he tells us, right? The only, we have very little verification other than the fact that Steve went to high school with him. So like, we know a little bit about his past.
Where's the yearbook?
Well, no, we do have some photos of young Rich.
Yeah. But again, like, we need like a publication that verifies this, because they can do great stuff with Photoshop these days. That could be somebody else.
That's true.
That could be somebody else.
I don't know. He's so distinct looking, though, that I feel like you look at the photo and it's like, man, that dog's 100% Rich. Well, we love you, Rich, and
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's switch gears, because I feel like he's going to not call me for about a month.
No, it's truly all in good fun and all with love. And I know you said you listened to the Drew and Brian episodes and that you had I don't know, responses, rebuttals. It was very ominous. I didn't know if this was like, oh, this will be fun, or like, oh no, like he has issues. I don't know. What did you think?
Yeah. So I was I definitely had some responses for what they had said.
Yeah.
So starting with Drew, right? So the only time I see Drew these days is when I bug him to buy me action figures on eBay. So I'm very, very grateful for what Drew does. Drew's like, like the AR crew's like go-to best friend who is going to help them out in any situation. So we all love Drew because, again, he's just a great human being and he's just so helpful. Like, I wouldn't have like half the stuff that I have. Like this desk right now that I'm working with right now, he and I built that during the pandemic. So the pictures behind me too, he helped me hang those up.
Aww.
So again, like, and this is during the pandemic. So, Drew has helped out so much. But the issue that I kind of have with what he said, and it was about like, being safe during COVID. I'm not against being safe. Obviously, like, I want everyone to be safe and myself more importantly. But he said along the lines of like, that people aren't being like responsible enough. And I'm not sure who he's referring to. Obviously we see people in like Florida having boat parties, right? My friend lives in Miami and he's living his best life like nothing is happening. Obviously that's kind of a problem. But like, I don't like the idea that we need to be locked in here like this. We are not creatures that can be locked away like this. It's bad for development. It's bad for socialization, right? So me speaking as a psychologist here, I'm seeing all these things. It's really bad for development and socialization. So, obviously, like, you want things to reopen safely, right? But you can't have people locked away like this as we were back in March. It's been a year. Vaccinations have been happening. I feel that people that are like, we need to stay like, locked away, doing all this remote shit. It feels like they're talking like this is going to be like the new normal. Like this can't happen. Like my students that are at home are suffering miserably. They don't know it, but in the long run, it's going to fuck them up big time.
So wait, you're still teaching remotely fully or
no,
is it a mix,
I'm in person. I teach kids in class and on my board.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I have kids fucking sleeping in my class. And when I see that happen, I yell, "Hey, wake up." I'll stop what I'm doing. I'll wake them up. And they're losing education time, right? They're losing like the socialization skills. They don't know how to talk to me because they've been at home so much. They don't know how to interact with people. So this whole idea of like we got to stay locked down until every single person is vaccinated. That can't happen. We need to, obviously be safe, but we need to get ourselves out there. And Drew was like alluding to this, and obviously he had COVID, and like a good friend of his died from COVID, and I understand that it's dangerous. I definitely do, and I'm not saying be like be frivolous with this, but this idea that this is going to be like our new normal, it can't, because we're not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. So like I had a big gripe with that, and I was like, you don't live where I live, and you've seen what I've seen. So I was not happy with what he said about that.
All right. Hey, look, it's always interesting to get different perspectives. I think with this, everyone has their own threshold, I guess, for what they're comfortable with, and there certainly are questions, especially when you're dealing with with younger people or with mental health generally about the toll that this is taking. I'm still in the camp of trying to be as safe as possible. And I like we have been working from home, and I'm happy to continue working from home for the foreseeable future. For your students though, so like and I know my mom works at the same school, but she's working with a different group. So like the students in your class, do they have the option, or the school, or they rotate, or how does that work?
So there's an option of being fully remote where you're completely remote.
Yeah.
Right? You have to have your camera on. You have to obviously do all the work, but you're just at home. And then you have the hybrid option where you either come in to school during the morning session or the afternoon session. When you're not in school, you're working from home. So it's like, you know, each day I see a different group of kids.
Gotcha.
But here's the thing. Since they can stay home and they give us bullshit reasons, like it's too cold to go outside, they stay home. So I'll have one kid or no kids in my classroom. So I'm teaching all from the board, right? When you have at-risk kids who don't do anything, who need supervision, and they're at home, how can I monitor them? I had a kid today get a 0 out of 10 on an open notes quiz. How does that happen? Everybody else got 100. 100. That kid needs to be here. Imagine if that kid is your doctor 50 years from now. Good luck to you. I hope you get what you deserve.
Yeah, I mean, again, and I know, this has been a debate. I mean, with in terms of what Drew specifically said, I mean, yeah, I don't know exactly who that was directed to. I mean, certainly at a minimum, people who are out there partying and really ignoring all safety measures. In terms of, some of these things that now have been opening up, whether it's, having more people in a classroom or in restaurants or whatever, I don't know, exactly where he falls on that. Again, I know he's not doing it himself.
Right.
We aren't either. I mean, for us and for me personally, like the biggest driving thing has been, wanting to keep Milo safe. And it's like Bruce Wayne in Batman v Superman. If there's a 1% chance, I have to take it as an absolute certainty. And that's kind of been my mindset with this, which, we've really been, we go out for walks and we'll run into Starbucks and pick up stuff. Like, it's not like we don't go anywhere, but, we really haven't gone many places. And, like my mom we've met her outside masked, and that's really been the extent of it. As much as they say like kids don't seem to really get it, and if they do, for the most part, it's not bad. It's like, I don't want to take that chance. And then you hear about these, some of the long-term effects that they're just like starting to figure out. That for him and for us, like that's kind of scary. The other thing too, though, which I recognize, is that I think a lot of our feelings have been informed by the fact that we have been fortunate enough to work from home. So it's like, so it's easy. I guess that makes it a little bit easier for us to kind of keep that up elsewhere. Cause like my buddy from high school, he's a doctor, and he's been posting photos with his wife and kids, like going out to restaurants. And it's like, no, we're not doing that. And we wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. But it's like, I mean, he's out there in the hospital every day. It's like, he probably figures this is the least of the risk, that he's taking. So I think, everyone's kind of coming at it from a little different perspective, but it's always good to get, a different, a different point of view.
I guess.
Now what about the Brian episode? Because I actually had a follow-up question for you about the Brian episode. We might be thinking about the same thing. I don't know. We might not.
Do you want to go first, and I can build upon it?
Yeah, I was shocked when I had only learned recently about him switching careers and now working at a supermarket. So that in and of itself surprised me, because as far as I know, like he doesn't have any, background, any experience, and he's on a management track, which is great, but I was just surprised. But I asked him, as you heard, I was like, did you talk to Tom? Cause like you've been working at a supermarket for as long as I've ever known you. And he was like, no, I was shocked by that. I don't know if that's what you were thinking, but I was surprised.
Yeah. I was going to comment on that. So like, the friend that got him the job, when I found out that he was working at the store as a manager, he was there too. So I was just tearing all of them new assholes, because like they're like, on the manager track, and they have a totally different, quality of life and the responsibilities. I'm down here at the ground level, taking all the risk, making sure that these people don't eat out of the trash. 'Cause that's my fucking job. Like, since before like things happened, and like we weren't wearing masks. Like my company didn't let us wear masks in the beginning.
Really?
Yeah, this is early March.
All right.
They wouldn't let us do it. People started doing it, and we said, "Fuck you! You make me take this mask off." Right? So like like we were on the like the doctors and nurses, we were on the ground level. We just didn't know who was sick. In the hospital, you know who's sick. Everyone is sick. In the store, you don't know who the hell is who. So I was out there on the fucking front lines, teaching hybridly. Meanwhile, last semester, so I was doing both.
Right. So you're a teacher, and then you also work at a supermarket on the weekends.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. I walk in both worlds, the professional and the blue collar thing. Yeah. So back to Brian, right? So we have definitely like two career paths, so to speak. But yeah, he never like mentioned it to me, and like he said, like we're on two different tracks. Like there's nothing really that we would like be able to give to each other, except for the fact, don't be an asshole to your workers, because your workers are your backbone. We make you your bonuses. If we decide we're not going to help you, we're going to slow walk you and do very, very little. As long as we're working, you can't do anything to us. If I decide I like you and I'm going to push and boost sales, that's my choice, not you. Just because you're the manager doesn't mean anything to me. So my advice to him was like, and it's probably unwanted advice because, he's the kind of guy that, not that he doesn't take advice, but he's, I don't want to say he's stubborn either. Cause I mean, we're all a little stubborn. We're Irish. We're definitely kind of like stubborn like that. But like, when I said that, I don't think he took anything. I don't think he took anything away from that. And it isn't like Brian is like a guy that's one of these managers that are like sticklers and like nasty to people, because a lot of these managers are. They're predominantly folks that barely have a high school education, definitely very, very little college experience, and they get a little bit of power and they think that they're bigger than they are. And I've seen hundreds of managers in my 20 years come through those doors. I've seen all types. And, he has to decide which one he's going to be. Like, the one that's decent to his workers, or the one that's like the real stickler to like all the rules. And that was my only advice to him. And again, like, he probably didn't take any of it, because he has his own vision about what he wants to do, and that's his prerogative.
Right on. All right. Yeah, no, I was curious. Was there anything else that you had wanted to respond to, or was that was it?
No, not really, because, like other than like, talking to Ken on a regular basis and Rich Roney once a week, whenever there's a pay-per-view on, I go to Brian's house and we watch together. So, I definitely, like, out of the AR crew, like, he's probably the one I interact with the most. With Drew, it's more like, I send him a text with a link to an eBay thing. I pick it up, we chat for about 5 minutes, and then that's it. Then it's literally the next eBay thing. If I didn't initiate it, I wouldn't hear from him. And he admitted to it before, where I texted him and a week later he got back to me.
Gotcha.
So it's like, honestly, it's and my mentality's always been where it's like, if you don't want to talk to me, I definitely don't want to talk to you. So, if that's how it's going to be, that's it. Like, if you don't want to reach out, that's totally your prerogative, and I'm going to feel the same way.
Yeah, I suppose. Do you feel that way about me? Do you feel that way about me?
Not really. Not really. Not really. Because I haven't seen you too much. Because you don't live around here anymore. So that's it's true. Like, I don't want to say like I'm like desensitized to it, but I guess I am a little bit.
Fair enough. Yeah, here's the thing, and I want to say this, like, genuinely, I continue to value our friendship, and, especially, I look back, like, so fondly, really on all those TV chats and like
Absolutely.
the coffee outside Big Louie's and like all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, obviously I know like we haven't been, as close, and honestly, man, like that makes me sad, and I still consider you such a close friend, even if and I think a testament to that friendship is like whenever we are together, it's like I feel like we can, like, we get right back into it, which is great. Obviously, this past year has been, again, it's like, no, we wouldn't be meeting for coffee, but and the last time that we were together for Rich's birthday a year ago, we talked about seeing the new Fast and Furious movie together, and I hope we still do that when the time comes. Like from my perspective, certainly there's no, like, it's not intentional. There's no bad blood, like not at all. I think, part of it is just, I mean, it's the same excuse of like, well, we don't have the store. I think that's a little piece of it. I think like just different interests, right? Like you got really into the training, right? The MMA, right? All that, and watching MMA and all that stuff. And like, while I admire, like I respect it, it's not something that I've been into. And I think like what was the basis, like for so many of our conversations, the TV, it's like that's kind of fallen away.
I know. I noticed that when we talk too, even when we're Mickey Spillane's, like there are silences there.
I know.
Where it's like, like what do we talk about next? And
I'm like, what are you watching? And you're like, nothing. I'm like, all right.
I know. And then the conversation is over. The conversation is done. Yeah, that's really sad to me. And that's super sad. Like we need to find another way to reconnect.
Yes.
To obviously like mend, not like mend like the bonds that we have, because they're still there, but they could use a facelift.
Yeah, they could use a fresh coat of paint.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I guess, I bring this up because, when I look at like the people I've been talking to on the podcast so far, like, I guess in terms of, because again, like with Rich, again, I feel like our friendship has grown. With Bill, that I feel has grown too. Because like even when the store was around, he was off at school, so it's not like we saw him all the time anyway. So, and I really feel like in recent years, like we have become better friends and stuff like that. But so like when I talk to you, it's like, yeah, like we, I guess you're kind of in that. It's a rare category of people who like I was really, really tight with, and we just don't have as much contact now. So, yeah, maybe we need to find something else, or pick like one show that we'll both watch, or an old thing that we'll rewatch. We'll do a rewatch podcast or something,
Yeah, like, like kind of like the equivalent of like a book club, where it's like a TV, like, watching club.
Yeah. That might have to be down the line a little bit. I don't know that I can add yet another show. I think people might think I'm nuts, but
Stop it. You're ever the opportunist. To get
That's
yourself
terrible.
Out there. Not a bad thing. Not a bad thing.
No.
Not a bad thing, but you don't like, not go for an opportunity.
Opportunist has certain connotations. I would say like entrepreneurial or like enterprising or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. Opportunist has like this like, deviant connotation to it. Like I can see that. So, let me retract that.
I don't think I ever told this story. I don't think I did, but where someone basically did call me an opportunist, but didn't use that word. I won't use names or actual locations, but there was a comic hobby shop in the area that has since closed. And at one point, like one of the owners reached out to me and was like, "Hey, like, how come you never had us on the podcast?" And I was like, well, like, they said like, "Oh, you've had a lot of the other Westchester stores." And it's like, yeah, but for specific reasons. And I know the people and I wanted to cover a certain thing that they represented, like having Chris on to talk Pops, right? Like that was interesting to me. And, but I was like, but I'm covering comic shops across the country. Like I got to kind of mix it up. And he was like, "Oh, okay." And then the store ultimately closed, like right around the time I was making my comic shop country. And I reached out and I was like, "I'm so sorry that the store is closing. I mean, would you be interested in being featured in the documentary?" And he came back at me with like, "Oh, so now you want to feature us? Like you didn't want anything to do with us before." And I was like, "Listen, It's okay. Like I was like, I know this is a tough time, like blah blah, and we parted amicably, but yeah, it was, and it got to the point though where this was now the second time that I felt kind of like he was coming at me, and so I said as delicately as I could, I was like, basically the gist of it was like, I don't owe you, to be on the podcast, or like, it's not like anything is owed here. So it's like, I don't know that this is really justified. Anyway, so that was, that was that.
I hope that my comment wasn't as like,
no,
direct like that.
No,
not at all. Oh wait,
yeah.
can I just like bring something up? So, because like we were just talking about a show to kind of like rebond over, and we just brought in the Pops, right?
Mm.
Let me just quickly like show you something.
Did you get Pops?
If I can get these all on one frame. So I've been watching Schitt's Creek.
Oh.
I love this show. And I have the family. There's Alexis. I think that's David. There's Johnny. And there's Moira. So
right on.
These are my only Pops. But I love Schitt's Creek. That show is so funny. Like,
have you watched the whole thing?
I binged like the first 3 seasons. I have a few more to go. But yeah, like this is my family. The Shits.
Listen, that might be the show for us because so Steph loves it. She watched the whole thing. I never sat down and watched it, but she would have it on in the background all the time. So I've actually caught a lot of it, like just through osmosis, and it is hilarious. And it's one of those things where like I keep meaning to sit down and actually watch it. So yeah, no, that would be really fun to watch.
Eugene Levy,
chat about. Yeah,
the guy from American Pie, is just genius, and his son David on the show, who's his real son in real life, he's brilliant. He's brilliant. Like, so to kind of, if you were to ask me again, like, are you watching any shows? I would tell you I'm watching Schitt's Creek. Because it's hilarious. So much so that I spent like $100 getting the family.
Did you get them through Chris or elsewhere?
I tried to, because he only had David, and I wasn't gonna piecemeal the whole thing. So I checked on like Amazon and stuff like that. They had everybody except for Alexis. Apparently Alexis is super hard to get, right? So like I ordered from like Big Bad Toy Store. I tried pre-ordering it. It's been months since like nothing ever shipped. So I canceled the order, and I was like, forget it. I'm just gonna go through eBay and I'll buy the whole set, whatever the price is. So I just gave in and just got them all.
Are those your first? Well, I think I had gotten you a couple of Pops over the years.
I have Ben McKenzie from Gotham.
Gotham. Did you ever watch Gotham? No. It's good. Yeah.
No, I'm good.
No. All right. It's funny because everyone always was all about the villains, and they did a nice job with a lot of the villains. But I was just there for Ben McKenzie busting heads. It was good.
I mean, like, I feel that it deviated way too much from the original premise. Like, Bruce Wayne was supposed to be, like, a side character, but he, like, grew into a teenager in 4 years. Right? Didn't he, like, some magic happened and he got older?
In the series finale, they did a 10-year flash forward, and it was a different actor in a suit. I mean, that was it, though. But, no, he just grew. I mean, over 5 years, I mean, I guess it hit at the right time in his development where, like, from the pilot to the penultimate episode before the time jump in the finale, the kid got a lot bigger. Okay. But it was good. I mean, I do think in retrospect, I think they would have been better served by really just doing Gotham Central. And then they could have used flashbacks to young Bruce. They could have done something like that.
Yeah.
I think that would have worked because, one of the complaints of the show was that all of these villains were rising years before Batman ever comes into play. And aside from deviating from the classic story, I think it is problematic because I think it's really interesting when you can kind of have that question of like, well, did Bruce becoming Batman inspire all of these other costumed villains? Like it makes like it adds an interesting wrinkle to it. But in this show, it's like, no, they were all already there.
Yeah, exactly. So they made him.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. That puts a different spin on it, which is interesting in its own way. But yeah, I think they should have just done Gotham Central, and then they could have had flashbacks to Bruce as a kid, trying to solve his parents' murder, training, all that stuff. I think that would have worked well. But anyway, I mean, I liked it overall. So with Schitt's Creek, you have the DVDs, you said?
Yes.
So that was my other question for you. Like I guess that answers it. So you're still buying TV on DVD?
No.
Oh no, just
that. I just happened to get that.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't bought a box set in maybe 5 or 6 years. I can't even remember the last TV season that I've bought. Yeah, I have no idea. And even movies too. I haven't been buying any physical media. If anything, like the last Blu-ray that I bought was like the 1990s Turtles movie. Because I didn't have it on Blu-ray, and I wanted to watch it, and I couldn't, so I was like, I'm just going to get the Blu-ray. So, like, buying, like, the older movies that I had on DVD, I'll get them on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of it with that.
I know, because, I mean, like, that's another thing I was thinking about. I mean, remember all the TV sets that we would buy?
And Best Buy, Best Buy is a hollow shell of what it once was. Like, there's, like... Do you remember how like the CDs were there, and then like the CDs like became like one rack, where it was like just kind of like the Taylor Swift releases and like the Adele releases. The movies have become that, where it's like they have like the bargain bin, and they have the new releases. I was in there like 4 days ago, and as the first time that I was there in probably 2 years actually. So it was weird going into a Best Buy.
No, totally. I mean, that's the funny thing. As much as, we always talk about, like when, like new comic book day, when the Wednesday routine. But for me, and I think for you too, like we had the Tuesday routine, like when the new DVDs came out. And I mean, I remember in college in particular, and especially having a college schedule, it's like, it was easy to pop on over at some point during the day. And I remember having my list, like I kept a list on my computer and using the website tvshowsondvd.com and their release schedule.
Which is defunct
now. And I would have oh, is it? Aw, that makes me sad. But I guess I'm not totally surprised. But like, I would have and basically, and I think you were pretty similar. It's like any show that I watched during the season that I liked, I would buy it on DVD and then rewatch it and watch all the special features and everything. And so, I would buy stuff all the time. And then I just got to a point where, because I have gotten into all these streaming platforms and I'm watching so much stuff, and it's just so much to keep up with that I don't have and with everything else going on, it's like I really don't have time to rewatch anything anymore. And the space, honestly, became the other factor, especially with moving, right? Because I lived in my parents' house. We moved there when I was 8, and I stayed there until I was 26. And then I moved to my apartment, and then I moved in with Steph, and then we moved again to our new place here. And over these 3 moves over the past decade, it's like every time I'm like, I can't keep moving this stuff, whether it's statues or trade paperbacks or DVDs. It's like enough. Like I don't want to keep doing this just so that they can sit there. That's why I've unloaded like so much stuff. And I know there are arguments for physical media. But I'm okay. Like there's so much to watch. If there's something that one day isn't available, I'll watch something else, I guess.
Yeah. Like for me, I'm the opposite. I do like the physical media. Like I like reading the book in hand. I can't read anything on an iPad. Like there's again a psychological and a neurological aspect of it too, where if you're reading something with something in your hand, you actually pick it up better than when you're looking at it on the screen. There's science to back that up. Again, AP psychology, learning new shit. So science winning.
Oh, are you actually teaching that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, right on.
Yeah. So the worst thing that you can give me is give me more information and more knowledge.
I mean, I definitely get, and certainly look for collectors and for like, I get wanting to own it, to have it, and I get what you're saying, like that like the physical experience of holding it and flipping through the pages, it is different. As far as the collectability, I guess I got to a point where, like, take Hush for example. I do still own the trade paperback, but at this point now, I derive more satisfaction and meaning from the fact that, like, I have an hour and a half or however long we recorded for of a great discussion about this book. I said everything I needed to say about it, and that episode will go out there and it'll live forever.
Be there forever.
That for me now is more important than like, oh, I have Hush on my shelf. It's like, if I end up selling it and then down the line I want to read it again and I pull it up on my iPad, that's fine. But like, so it's just kind of shifted for me, but I've definitely been in the other camp where it's like, I got to have it. And with the TV shows, especially, and with the TV shows, it is interesting. Cause like, over this past year, especially at the height of the Black Lives Matter protests and everything, where episodes of shows with blackface got pulled. And among those were episodes of shows that I love, like 30 Rock and Scrubs and Always Sunny. And I now no longer own those on DVD. And so all of a sudden I'm like, oh, so like when I want to rewatch that show, I'm going to have gaps.
There are things you can't watch anymore.
So again, I know there are arguments for the physical media, but yeah, I don't know. For myself, like I'm okay with streaming and with digital for the most part. Like, you better believe I still have my Smallville DVD set, and that I'll always keep. The stuff that's like that important to me. But for the rest, I'm okay.
Yeah, and from the other perspective, I'll speak to the other perspective, where it's like, if you're more of like, like someone who cares about like the art of something, like the box art is important to me. Like, that's the first thing that I see. When you see advertisements, like, on the street, it's the first thing that you see. So, like, the idea of like the cover artist, which is now a big thing in comics these days, like, because no big time artist does interiors anymore. You get paid more for doing covers and jerking off doing something else. So like having the art, like that aesthetic thing of sensation of having that stimulus with you, it resonates with some people. And for me, like having that, like, that thing that I can see where it's like, oh, here's like the box art for this video game. It's iconic. It's showcasing the characters. So for me to have that on my shelf is important to me. And again, if that game gets like destroyed, let's say, and they don't produce it anymore, well, I'm glad that I have it. So to speak from that perspective, that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, no, I definitely get, the arguments, and I might jump back over to the other side at some point, but I don't know. I honestly, like, for me now, I think it's the space is really kind of the deciding factor, or definitely like one of the most deciding factors, where it's like, and especially now that we're in our new place, it's like, I know the amount of space that I'm working with for the, so, yeah, I don't know. I don't see myself like diving back in with the physical media. And I guess where I really finally just took the plunge and where I sold a lot of my stuff, it got to the point with Netflix, now all these other platforms, it just was like, well, this is clearly the direction, like and I held out for a while, but then it was just like, this is like the direction we're going in. But I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. I'm trying to think what was the last like DVD that I bought? I mean, maybe
when AR was still around?
No, probably after that. No, like within the past couple of years, they did the Death of Superman animated. They did a new Death of Superman animated movie, and I did buy that. But then, because it was I could either buy it digitally or buy the physical media. I was like, well, at least I want to have it. But again, I think I've shifted even from that perspective now, where I think when the sequel came out, I just bought it digitally. So. I don't know. Maybe Snyder Cut I would buy on Blu-ray if they're good special features.
Yeah, and again, like, it's definitely about like, space is definitely an issue, and you have to be very, very selective on what you buy. That's the smart thing to do. You can't just buy everything, and buying everything doesn't really help you out. You just have too much stuff and it gets cluttered and it goes into storage and you don't really enjoy it. So being practical with your purchases is the smart thing to do. So, I definitely agree with you about like the space issue and to be more selective in your purchases.
Yeah,
And like with like even like with like the statues. Remember that old fiasco? We were buying every
yeah,
Buffy statue that came out.
I
Like
know.
that was crazy. I mean, I still have mine because like they're really nice, and they're like thousands of dollars on eBay. So to rebuy them, forget it.
Yeah. Are they really going for that much? I should have kept mine then. But
To
yeah,
resell
no, I
them,
remember those.
to
Was
sell them
that?
again. Ever the opportunist, huh?
I guess I am. But I know it's funny because I think that just came up in my Facebook memories was either you writing on my wall or vice versa about like the Buffy maquettes like finally
Yeah,
getting a release
those are
date or
awesome,
something.
right? Like
Yeah, they were great pieces
they were
until they
nice.
started.
Like they were nice. Even Skull bought them.
Yeah, no, they were great until what was it? The Spike one was like dwarfed the other ones in size or
Faith.
something. Like all
Faith
of
was
was it
so
Faith?
small. Faith was tiny compared to Buffy.
Yeah,
So yeah, no, it was problem. But you bought Glory, and you bought like
yeah.
I didn't buy Glory. I bought all the Buffys, and I bought Faith. You bought all the dudes though.
I did. But yeah, I mean, and if they had done even more, I would have bought them because that was, I guess, around the time like I had watched Buffy and Angel like during college, and I got so into it, and then all these, so it was a line of statues based on an animated series that never happened that they did like a little pilot for or something. But so it was great. Like the designs were really cool. They were nice pieces. Do you still get any statues now?
Do you see Huntress behind me?
Oh yes, yeah, yeah.
So she's 35 inches tall. She came in two
Wow.
boxes. The boxes are taller than my desk. It cost me $200 to ship it. Yeah,
Oh my
just
god.
it's massive. Yeah, she's quite the nice piece. So I actually have been buying statues again. I guess irresponsibly. Um, like if it looks nice, I'm just buying it.
Is that new?
I sorry.
Is that new, the Huntress?
She
Like
came out
relative
last
recent?
year.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I got it from Big Bad Toy Store. It was like $1,500. Yeah, so the statues are like 4 grand now these days. Some
Yeah.
of these nicer pieces, and you can imagine these things are like the size of like a small town. Yeah, like two giant boxes, like almost as tall as me, weighing about 40 pounds each, of pure like ceramic that could murder somebody if I were to drop it on your head. Um, but yeah, for all the viewers out
Yeah.
there, Helena in her Hush costume,
Yes.
that's
That's
that's a gorgeous piece.
that's really something. I mean, I learned a lot about the state of statues through my buddy Justin, who's in my comic shop country, where we show his collection because he's got all those like gigantic sideshow pieces and
Yeah,
everything. And we talked about how TV changed, like statues changed so much. It's like when I think of statues, I think of those the
Bowens.
$50 Bowen mini busts.
Yeah, those are like kids drawings compared to the stuff now. Like some of the stuff right now is like almost lifelike. Like I have a Thundercats Chitara piece. It looks like a person. Scary. It
No,
looks like a person.
I get what you're saying because going back to Justin, he just posted on Facebook like a Margot Robbie Harley Quinn statue. I don't, that's
The
coming
Hot
out
Toys.
soon. It might have. I'm not sure. But I looked and I thought like I had to do a double take. Like I was scrolling through and I was like, oh, is that a photo of her? And like I clicked, no, it's a statue. Like I know it's crazy. It's
Yeah.
really crazy. But I'm glad you still enjoy it. But do you have a showcase for these? Because that's just out loose, right?
Yeah. What I do is like I put a plastic bag over it, to keep the dust out.
Oh,
And like when I'm working in my space, I'll pull the plastic bag off so that I kind of like have like some sort of like other visual stimulus. Then before I go to bed, like I'll just throw the bag on top of it, and it keeps it like nice and like dust free. In my bedroom, like they're out in the open too. Since I'm never in my bedroom, only when I sleep, they're covered in plastic bags, like the like
right.
like the clear like produce bags.
Right.
So they're out there. I can see them. but they're protected from the dust. So yeah, I'm trying to get like some detolf shelves to display like some of my nicer pieces. I've cleaned up my living room a lot more these days. Because like school has invaded my personal life. So now I need to like, have like a workspace as well as like my living space. So, I have to have like, some other stuff here to, basically fill the space. I'm not putting more work shit there.
Gotcha.
So that's
well, that's cool, man. Yeah, well, I'm glad that you're still enjoying the statues. I mean, again, like I ended up selling most of them. Like I kept the stuff that I liked the most, and they're behind me, and I'm content. But yeah, you should get some showcases, and you can have O'Day can help you set them up since he just built his whole IKEA entertainment system. I saw the before and after photos. That was quite the project.
Yeah. But his schedule is a little tight these days.
That's true.
I don't think he knew that he was working 3 to midnight. That kind of shift. And when you have that kind of shift, you don't have a life. You can't go anywhere because you got to be there at 3. And doing stuff after midnight, yeah, good luck with that. Unless if you're on like, PCP.
Well, listen, man, this has been a lot of fun. Is there anything else that we didn't get to that you wanted to talk about?
I don't know. I know we've been going for about an hour and a half, but do we ever like talk about why we're doing it this month? I don't think we ever talked. We kind of just jump right in.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So what's the theme? Why am I here?
You know what? I will say this. In the intro that you didn't hear that I pre-recorded, I did mention that you're a fellow April birthday. But yes, thank you for bringing that up.
we just literally ran to the TV without any intro. And I was like, I'm just going to go with it. So, maybe we'll like have to do it in reverse.
That's right. So, the April Fool's episode. So we're not fools, hopefully. But But yeah, we're both April birthdays. So I'm the 8th, you're the 15th, and right? 15th?
19th.
Yeah. 19th. Damn it. Sorry. I said it and then I was like, no, that's not right. 19th. But yeah, so and it's been fun like over the years, and we're 5 years apart, and so like we've often had sort of similar milestones like at the same time. But you got a big one coming up next year.
Yeah, it's scary, man. It's scary. Like, being 39, like I didn't think I was going to make it this far, to be honest with you.
No.
But yeah, it's like, like, do you know how you have that, there's this, it's not really a saying, but it's kind of like a mindset where younger kids can't wait to be 21 and to like, do all kinds of debauchery.
Yep.
But when you're older, you're always reflecting upon like, when you were younger. Like, I don't want to get to that point where it's like the Al Bundy syndrome, where it's like, I'm at a certain age and all I can talk to people about is like when I was younger.
Yeah.
Like, I want to talk about like something I'm doing right now. So like, I don't like that I'm gonna get there and have to like kind of do that. But I don't want to be 21 either, because that's a horrible age. Like, having my mindset right now, having 38 years of experience, like I don't want to lose that. But I do want like my metabolism and like like my physique back. So I'd have that, but yeah, so 40 is coming up.
I mean, look, no, I think, the concern you raise, like, no, I mean, like, that makes sense. And, same here. It's like, I don't look forward to the point where it's like, oh, all you can really do is look back. But I think, yeah, as long as and also 40 is not old. I mean, I know I guess it's all relative. And if you talk to someone who's 20 and they're like, oh my God, 40, yeah. Like, really that, it's not. And I think though, as long as you're, and I think like, as much as I joke about like, the TV shows, like you were so into and then like you just dropped, but it's like, you've, whether it was another show that you got more into or now other interests entirely, like the MMA, And obviously now you're further along in your teaching career and you're teaching new subjects. So it's like, I don't know. I think as long as you're, whether it's kind of continuing an existing interest or developing a new one, like learning new things, trying different things, the fact that you're training now, I mean, like that's really cool. So I guess from what I can tell, I don't think you're in danger, of what you're afraid of. So, I think you'll be all right.
I think so too. It's just when you're surrounded by like young people and like they have like their life ahead of them. I'm not jealous of that. Like I don't want to be in their position. Like I would no amount of money would allow me to switch places with them. But it's like, you do kind of remember like, we didn't have that responsibility, and like I didn't have like the world bearing down on me. Like when you're younger, like you basically have no responsibility. You don't have to have a job until you're like, out of the house. So like, in a way, it is a little bit of envy there. But like you said, it's all relative.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny too. I mean, obviously you're working with kids much younger than I am, but like in my position in law school admissions, I mean, we do have some of our non-linear students who are in their 30s or 40s or 60s in some cases, but the majority of our students are in like early to mid 20s. So it's like, yeah, now I'm 10 plus years older than, than most of them. And it's rare that I really feel it. Occasionally I do. Like we had a student worker and I referenced Charles in Charge one day. And then I stopped and I said, "You don't know Charles in Charge, do you?" She was like, "No."
Yep.
So that was one instance. I was like, "Oh man," like that made me feel it a little bit, but no, I mean, I think, yeah, I think just the classic, Stalloneism. Like you got to keep punching, you got to keep moving forward, and there's so much to experience. I mean, honestly, over this past year and a half, I mean, becoming a dad, like, it's completely, such a totally different experience and exhausting and demanding, but like rewarding in a way that you really can't describe. So, I think that's the beauty of all of it. When I talked to Brian, I was surprised. I didn't know this was an aspiration of his. Like he talked about wanting to start a Brazilian
cool.
jiu-jitsu studio. Like I was curious for you, like milestone birthday aside, like are there any things like that for you? Like any aspirations, either professional, personal, anything else that you're like, yeah, I really want to tackle this like in the years ahead?
Obviously, like I want to grow in my teaching profession. Like I have a lot of classes on my resume, and I like being the guy that is taught it all. Like as a bonus question on a test, I ask my students, name a class other than the class that we're in that I've taught before. Because on the first day, like I tell them everything about myself, and I'm very, very open with what I do, and how I feel. So like my conversation with you is a modified version of my teaching style. Obviously, there's no like bad words, and like I'm not like as direct like in this conversation,
Right.
but that's how I am, and I tell kids that like being genuine is really, really important. So like I like sharing that I've been around the block. I know what I'm talking about. So when I say something to you, it's coming from a place of experience, and you should really take what I have to say into consideration when you're doing things, or take my advice on this. And obviously, when you're a kid, when someone gives you advice, it goes in one ear and out the other. But at least like I can say to myself, I tried to help these kids in some shape, way, or form, and that makes me feel better. So my career, like just like solidifying that. Like I've taught ninth grade for 20 years, I've taught 10th grade for 30 years, I've taught psychology for 10 years. Like just having like all of that under my belt, it's like how many championships have you won? So every year is kind of like like a title run or a title reign almost, and I'm very, very proud of that. In terms of like my training, I'm almost 40, so like I'm not going to be competing professionally. It's not a career for me. So as long as I can reach the highest belt that I can get if I can make it to purple belt, which is the next one from blue, I'd be happy. And I could say, listen, like, I train jiu-jitsu. Currently, I'm a blue belt. It's an accomplishment, and I'm proud of that. So, like, I'm not like where Brian's at, because he's definitely more serious about it than I am. But, like, I do take it very, very, like, seriously, and I'm very, very proud of what I've done. So being able to say that to people, is intrinsically satisfying for me.
Cool. Right on, man. No, and I'm glad, especially with the training side of it, like, I'm glad you got into, like, that's an awesome thing. We, and I'm including you, like, would always joke about your, that you would be the Red Lantern if you were in the, in the Corps. I mean, do you feel like, whether it's a combination of age and or the training, like, do you feel like that's subsided a little bit, or do you feel like that red ring is still, like, lighting up all the time?
Well, it depends. Like, there are some topics that trigger me, and that's with everybody. I think everybody has that Red Lantern tucked away. Mine is in my pocket. Yours might be, like, in your drawer, I guess, like, in your junk drawer. It's not visible. You can't access it really quickly, but it's there. So I think we have ours in different places. But, like, obviously, like, when I'm teaching, like, I can't be, like, like, enraged all the time, right? So, like, that's not good either. Right. It doesn't come off as appealing. So you can't be like, I want to fuck you up right now because you looked at me funny, or you didn't do your homework. You're a fucking ass. I want to kick you in the face. You can't do that. And when you're in the gym, like, I'm getting my ass beat all the time. So you can't be that aggressive, because someone is just going to destroy you, and it's public. So you really got to keep that hidden away, And again, it's better to learn than to get pissed off about it, because getting pissed off is not going to help you out at all, especially if you're, like, trying to learn a new craft, and everybody in the gym, can beat you at any moment. So, having the red ring is it's good to have, but you really can't, like, be like, flaunting it like it's like bling.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think probably maintaining that, that red ring all the time would take its toll. So, so no, I'm glad. And
but it
keeps
I'm sure
the
sharp,
training,
though. It keeps you sharp.
Yeah.
Like, it makes you observe what everyone is saying and doing, as opposed to being, like, having blinders on. So if you're, like, hypersensitive to what folks are saying, and, like, and getting their intentions, it makes them be more truthful to you. It's like, well, what'd you mean by that? I took it this way. Did you just insult me here? You need to explain this. So,
yes.
Again, like, it's relative in that way, but, it's never gonna go away. It's in my pocket.
Sometimes I think it's just your delivery, like, because you are emphatic, and sometimes, not so much like in this conversation, but sometimes, like, is he mad? Like, is he mad at me? But it's like, no, I think, like, he's just, like, I think he's just, like, he's just expressing his opinion,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, like, if you're passionate about something, like, my voice tone will change. I tell my students, like, if there's a topic that I'm passionate about, you're gonna hear my tone of voice change. Like, it's not gonna be, like, monotonous and, like, dull sounding. You're gonna, like, hear my voice squeak, because, like, like, I'm trying to get a point out. So, yeah, it can be misleading in a way.
Do you still carry a gunny sack, metaphorically?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Is it as heavy as it used to be, or do you find, like, do you ever empty it, I guess, maybe is the better question.
I'm still all about, forgiving but not forgetting.
And just for a quick recap, we've mentioned this numerous times over the years, but the gunny sack, right, is this idea that, like, any transgression that you experience, you can file it away in this gunny sack that you carry with you.
But most people have one gunny sack for all their experiences. I have one for every single person that I've met. Like,
yes, yeah.
Mike Saragorio, his is pretty full. Rich Roney, he has some stuff in there as well. Drew has some stuff in there. Brian has some stuff in there. You have some stuff in there.
I'm sure.
That's just my family has stuff in there.
Listen, if Rich Roney has his own gunny sack in the Tom Darby collection, then who possibly wouldn't?
Nobody.
I guess is my question. Yeah,
Nobody.
So
nobody.
But yeah, no, I mean, I ask about emptying it out and maybe forgiving but not forgetting. Maybe that's okay, because it's like, yeah, you don't want this stuff to to weigh you down. But I get what you're saying. Like, sometimes it's hard to just kind of, like, you don't need to be, for myself, like, you don't need to be actively angry towards a person, but at the same time, like, you don't forget.
Yeah, because again, like, if it bothered you to a degree where it had to go in the gunny sack, like that's hard to forget.
Right.
So yeah. It's maybe it's having a good memory. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
But yeah, so you were on this episode because we are both April birthdays. The 19th for you, the 8th for me, and yeah, 5 years apart. So we've hit, again, milestones, at similar times, and 35 for next year is not like the biggest milestone, but yeah, next year will be 35 for me, and then the 40 for you. So by next year, I think hopefully we'll be able to have a nice, we can bring back the badass birthday bash.
Are you gonna come outside?
By next year, I sure hope so.
I don't know. I'm not really convinced too much.
As long as Fauci says it's all right, I think it'll be all right. I think well before then, hopefully well before then, we'll be able to get together. But certainly by the time we do that, and we've had some fun like, it's been fun to kind of do the combo birthday, the years that we've done that. We'll have to think of something fun, for next year.
Definitely.
I'm sure we'll end up at Mickey Spillane's, but you know what? After a year of quarantine, that might be great.
Hey, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, you like Mickey's.
I do like Mickey's. I've actually like patroned them during the pandemic.
That's good.
That's
during
good. Like when I was teaching at home full time last spring, every day I would call Mickey's and like, hey, it's Tom. I want this. So like, so one of the managers, I forgot his name, but like I would talk to him like every single day about stuff. And like he knew my order, like, hey, like, do you want this or this today? So it was I felt good to patron them during these tough times,
Yeah, no, right on. Same here. I mean, again, like we haven't dined in anywhere, but it's like we've gotten takeout from a lot of places, and yeah, we're happy to do that. You know what I wanted to ask you? Do you still do your Starbucks? Like, do you get Starbucks multiple times a day?
Oh yeah.
Really?
That's never ever gonna change. Like,
that's never. How many times a day?
And midday.
Okay.
Typically,
right, what's the
in
drink
the morning,
of choice?
And then after school, because I need it, or if I don't go to the restaurant, I'll brew it at home.
Right on.
So I have Starbucks at home.
When you go to Starbucks, what do you get? Do you get the same thing both times? Do you mix it up? What do you normally get?
So actually, the baristas, like, they give me free coffee now these days.
That's nice.
I just walk in, I get free coffee randomly, because I'm a frequent patron on Central Avenue and the one where I live. So like when they see me come in, like, they know what I want, and the question is hot coffee or cold or iced coffee today. And I tell them I don't care, just pour something, like whatever you have ready for me, I'll take it. And like,
yeah.
Like the girls were like, making bets on what I was gonna get, and I caught them talking about it, and I called them out on it. And I was like, listen, like, who won the bet about what I was gonna get? And she was like, oh, you heard that? I was like, yeah, I did. So what's in it for me? Obviously, I wasn't like, like that nasty about it as I was just now, but I was more like flirtatious with that. But yeah, like, they'll make bets with each other for their regulars.
Yeah.
But I get free coffee, so I'm good.
That's very nice. I will say that's been, because like we try to go out daily. Like when the weather's nice and we can just go to a park or walk around our neighborhood, like we'll do that. But over these winter months when it's been so cold, it's like, well, where can we go? And it's like every day, it's like, where are we going to go? Starbucks has been our go-to. Like we'll order ahead and then we'll run in and get it. And we have one that's like 10 minutes from where we are now, which is great. Sometimes when we're like, we wouldn't mind killing a little bit more time, like we'll drive to White Plains or Hartsdale and go to one of those. But yeah, so we've been regulars as well. Never more than once a day, but we've been averaging, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 times a week, I feel like, during, especially recently, just because it's been a place to go.
Yeah, no, it's important to change your scenery. Rich and I will always talk about just changing up the scene. I actually went to a hotel over the summer just to have a different change, just to do some work because I couldn't stand being here anymore. Seeing the
probably
same
got a good rate
every fucking day, the same surroundings. I was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. So I went to the Crown Plaza and I was there for 3 days. And there were nights where I stared at a wall. It was different.
Yeah.
I would work during the day and I would watch the same shit on their TV than I would here. But it was better because I was in a different place. And that's really important, Yeah.
There is something to be said for that. It's funny because like, not funny, but for myself, it's like, I could probably go a good few days just home without really thinking about it too much. But when I do go outside or go somewhere else, like I do appreciate, it's like, oh, like I feel kind of like reinvigorated. But honestly, like just having Milo, like that's motivated us. Cause it's like, again, for us and for me in particular, like I said, I'd be okay, for a day or two not going out, but it's like, we want him to at least be in the car and to see some different things and obviously to get air and light and everything. So that's been a big motivator for us, but no, I get what you're saying. And I'm glad that you were able to, kind of get that little recharge there. So we've gone for 2 hours. If anyone wants to hear more from the two of us, tune in tomorrow to My Comic Shop Book Club. It was really a fun discussion of Hush. I was really happy with that, and I hope people enjoy. That's, some of the stuff I'm picking might be a little more specific, like people might not have necessarily read it, but like everybody's read Hush, so it should be fun for people to listen to. Yes, you have a book that you suggested for a future selection, and maybe we'll do that down the line. So, all right, Tomo. Well, listen, happy birthday early.
Thank you. You as well. We'll communicate, the day of.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, but no, listen, this was fun catching up, and yeah, I hope that we continue to stay in touch and find some new stuff to talk about, and yeah, recapture some of that, some of all that good stuff. Yeah,
I'm the magic again. We have to go to counseling. We have to go to counseling and rejuvenate the relationship.
Thankfully, I don't know. I don't feel like I don't think they're. Again, I don't think counseling is needed. I think just something.
I'm being very, very overdramatic with that.
Although, especially now, we would do virtual counseling. We would be just like this. We'd have a third person there, and
Isn't who it is though.
Well, probably Mike would be my go-to pick.
Because I would just annihilate him for hours. That could be great for ratings. If you want to hear someone annihilate another human being, that would be great fodder.
Yeah. But, well, listen, thank you, Tom. Thank you to everyone who checked out this episode. I appreciate it. We'll be back next month with Mother's Day. In the meantime, be sure to check out Digging for Kryptonite, check out My Comic Shop Book Club, and remember, don't be a flat squirrel. My Comic Shop History is a Flat Squirrel production. Art by Philtastic Phil Menza, music by Basic Printer. If you like what you heard, be sure to listen to Digging for Kryptonite, available on most major podcast platforms. Sign up for exclusive content at patreon.com/Anthony Desiato and watch My Comic Shop Country, out now on Apple TV and Amazon.